Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel. I recently got into trying X-Plane 12 and in this video I want to give you a little bit of a guide on how to get started, because when I started with X-Plane things were, well, a little bit bumpy at first. I had performance problems, I had problems with the game crashing, I had problems with all kind of add-ons doing all kind of things. So in this video I want to give you a little bit of an all-in-one guide, since I found that when I googled for lots of problems, I found many threads in the X-Plane forums where people all the time said, oh, that question's been asked a million times, just Google it. And then I'm Googling it and all I find is those people telling me to Google it, but not the actual answers to the problems. So while many things may seem obvious to people in the community, for me as a newcomer it was a little bit harder, and in this video I want to give you a little guide on how to get started. So, I brought my X-Plane version on Steam when it was reduced by like 50% or so in price, and while it seems that many people prefer the version directly from Laminar, it seems that the main reason for that is that betas are available earlier, and it seems that betas are somewhat of a must-have in this version, since it does take Laminar quite a long time to release things as stable public versions. So, over Steam, you can get betas as well. It just seems to take a little bit longer for them to become available. However, in my personal opinion, getting the thing for 50% off versus getting betas a little bit earlier was a fair compromise. Be aware that you can always try X-Plane in a free version available from the Laminar website, where you can fly around Portland. But apart from that, you can use full functionality. You can use it with add-ons, you can use it with, well, sceneries, you can tweak it around, see if it runs on your system, and so on. So that is something to keep in mind, and something that I can everybody recommend to try out, especially since the Cibo 737 works in it as well, and is available for free, so it gives you a very good impression of what is possible with an X-Plane. Alright then, let's move on to how I got my X-Plane to set up. At first I tried the demo version, but then I decided to go for the full version, and well, I downloaded it, I loaded up a flight at my favorite airport, and everything was in water. So the first things first, if you get the full version, then you need to download additional parts of the world. The 13 or so gigabyte that you get directly from Steam are something that basically only includes the area around Portland, just like the demo. So you need to get additional areas of the world, which once again are something in the region about 13 to 20 gigabyte. So how do you get those? Well, on the X-Plane page in Steam, you go into additional content, then you scroll down a little bit, and down here you find, for example, North America, South America, Europe, Africa, and so on. And these you need to get. So for example, we go in North America, then you will see that it is available for free, but you need to download it on top. So that's the first thing for you to do in case that you want to fly in other areas than Portland. So go ahead and grab those. So now we got our favorite scenery in the simulator, and now we want to go and fly. Well, so I'm running a rather good system. I've got a 5.2 GHz CPU and I've got an RTX 4090. What could possibly go wrong? So when it asks me about my settings, I simply max them out. Big mistake, very big mistake. Let's have a look into settings to see how we can configure them. So this is what I settled on after a little bit of playing around. So let me give you a small guide as to what to do. So the left side is the graphics card and the right side is your CPU. Now, may seem a little counterintuitive at first, because you would think like, well, but objects, surely that's a thing of the graphics card. Somewhat. Now here's the big problem. Even with the best possible graphics card, you can run your graphics setting all the way to the right, except for anti-aliasing. You put that to 8x and you're done. No system in the world can handle that at the moment. So be sure to put that a little bit to the left. Even 4x MSAA on my RTX 4090 works rather well. Now 2x works even better, but I figured that with the frame rates I usually get, I can set it to 4x. Now comes the right hand side, and that is quite important as well. Cloud quality, shadow quality, they didn't make much of a difference on my computer. What, however, does is the world objects density and the vegetation density. And that is all CPU dependent on here. Reminds me a bit of the good old FSX times, where that was also the case, that the CPU was really the thing that got maxed out, but in X-Plane it is the same thing. So when I put my vegetation down to low and the world objects to medium, rendering distance medium, that really did magic, and all of a sudden my frames went from 10 frames to 50. And also I disabled the parked aircraft 3D vegetation and the sync plugin bridge, and that really did a great change. And all of a sudden my frame rates were kinda okay. So if you are thinking about how to set your computer up, this is the graphics card, this is the CPU. Make sure that the anti-aliasing isn't set all the way up, as that really kills your frame rate. The rendering resolution also seems to play a little bit of a role, but I can run that in all the way to the right in full resolution as well. You can turn that a bit to the left as well. But those are the main things that I would start checking. Then on the CPU side of things, depending on how strong your CPU is, the lower two and the rendering distance, those are really what you want to play with. And the rest of it, just play around with it. But this is the important thing to get your initial X-Plane impression to run well. Next up, let's have a very quick look into our control assignments, since those can be a little bit of a hassle as well. So let's go to the joystick controls, and the first thing you need to do is to calibrate them. It will prompt you to do so, and you can simply follow the on-screen instructions for that. The next thing is control assignments. So by default, it does correctly detect all the axes, but there's a little bit of stuff that you want to try out, especially if you have a Bravo throttle. Then you really want to have a look into how those axes are assigned. So you can see that I am using my speed brakes in this kind of configuration, but not reversed. Then levers 2 and 5 I didn't assign, levers 3 and 4 I made my throttles, and I reversed those. And finally we've got the flap lever, which I reversed as well. Now, this apparently seems to cause a little bit of trouble depending on the add-on that you fly with, so it might be a good idea just to disable it at first. Also, a quick note there, if you want to fly the Cibo 737, which will probably be the first add-on aircraft you want to fly. It does have some problems if you have several joysticks assigned to the same controls, especially your elevator and ailerons. So an easy way to circumvent that is, obviously I decided to use my Thrustmaster Boeing Yoke for it, so I went to the HOTAS and disabled the pitch and roll axis, as that would otherwise conflict. And for a reason that I don't know, the Cibo would prefer my HOTAS over my Boeing Yoke, so do make that little setup to decide which joystick you want to use. So now that our X-Plane should be running more or less fine, let's have a little look into how to install add-on aircraft. And for that we can have a look into the X-Plane main folder, because installing add-ons is actually fairly easy. You basically just drag and drop your stuff into the simulator. So, for example, if you want to install an airplane, then you download the Cibo 737, you extract it, and then you simply go into the aircraft folder and drop it into here, like you can see over here with the B737X. That is basically my Cibo that I just dropped into there. After that, start your simulator, and that's it, your airplane is going to be there. That's about as easy as it gets. In terms of add-on aircraft available for X-Plane 12, there are lots of great videos out there, so I'm not going to go all over these. However, my personal aircraft that made me want to try X-Plane was the towless Airbus A340, and I found it to be a really good one, so I can absolutely recommend the towless Airbus series. Also, the fine guys at Airfoil Labs are doing great general aviation aircraft, so I can certainly recommend you to check their Cessna 172 out. For more recommendations, do have a look out on YouTube. There are great videos available from people who have a lot more experience with X-Plane than I do, so do have a look at those. Now let's talk about scenery. Default airports in X-Plane are actually quite good and are a lot more detailed than their counterparts in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So using the default airports actually is quite alright for the start. Now, there's two other add-ons that I would absolutely recommend you to get. The first one is Auto Ortho. Now, that basically is a streaming of satellite scenery, just like we have it in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and that is an absolute must-have in my opinion. Another add-on that you should get is Better Pushback, as it really makes your pushbacks a lot better, just like the title suggests. Now let's talk about a little of caveats that I ran into when trying to get those set up, as when I started with it I really got a lot of headaches since my X-Plane stopped working, and then nothing worked anymore, and then something worked again, and then nothing worked again, and overall I spent an entire day sorting those out. And again, Google wasn't really helpful, because on the X-Plane forums, most comments I could find was, hey, just Google it, this question has been asked 1,000 times. Yeah, but when it gets asked 1,001st time, then Google is just going to list that further question and not the actual answers. So for that reason, let's go over the tricks that I had to apply to get those add-ons to run. So I downloaded Auto Ortho and it worked perfectly. Then I installed a scenery add-on and all of a sudden it didn't work anymore and Auto Ortho just didn't show. Now, why was that? Well, it took me a little while to figure out, but ultimately it came down to a mesh scenery from an airport add-on. So you can see over here that I got Short Final Design's Munich scenery, and that one came with a mesh. Now, that mesh put itself on top of the Auto Ortho sceneries, and that messed it over. So just go into the scenery packs.ini, you find that once again in your main X-Plane folder, and then you go to custom scenery, and all the way to the bottom you find that file, and go into here and then just sequence your things. So make sure that airports are located at the top, then you have global airports, and below that you have the Auto Ortho stuff. And also general stuff like SimHeaven, which by the way also is a recommendable add-on, just Google for that, and you will find it pretty quickly. So again, my solution here was to put the mesh sceneries to the very bottom, and once that was done, all of a sudden Auto Ortho worked again, and I had just wasted half a day trying to find out how to do so. The last thing we need to talk about is Better Pushback. Now, Better Pushback is an add-on that enables a much better pushback in the simulator, and I got it to run at first, but all of a sudden it didn't work anymore and it wouldn't disconnect the pushback tuck. Now, that's a problem that you can actually finally Google a solution for, but let me give you the quick solution. It is to go into the settings, and then you go on to graphics, and you have to set the user interface size to 100%. Now, with many monitors nowadays, X-Plane defaults to 150%, like this. And that causes trouble with the UI of Better Pushback, and it doesn't show you that disconnect button. And so for that reason, you need to use user interface size of 100%, and when that is done, Better Pushback is going to work just fine. And that is all the tricks that I had to apply to get my X-Plane to run. Things certainly weren't easy, and nonetheless, caused me a little bit of headaches. However, when I finally had it running, I have to say that I actually quite like X-Plane the way it looks now. So, next up, I'm going to do a little flight here from my new Munich scenery and over to London Heathrow with the A340. So, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I do hope that this one helped you a little bit to get X-Plane to run, and do stay tuned for that full flight with a little bit of add-ons installed, as that is really going to make your simming a lot more pleasant in X-Plane. Now I'm looking forward to what you guys say in the comments below. Is there any add-ons that I have missed that I absolutely need to have? And what do you think I could improve on my settings? I'm looking forward to your input. If you liked the video, leave a like, comment to let me know what you think I can do better. And finally, if you're up for more, then subscribe to the channel, as it really does help out. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all again on the next one. In the meantime, enjoy your flights in whichever flight simulator you're using. And finally, stay tuned for that full flight video with the A340.